Beloved friends, yesterday we celebrated a wonderful feast of St. Lazarus. 1 week before Jesus was to face his crucifixion and experience that glorious resurrection, which is the ultimate gift of life to us as human beings. He was in Bethany, and he found out that Lazarus had died there. And so he went immediately to the house of his friend Lazarus and found there Lazarus' two sisters, Mary and Martha. And in a very moving account recounted in the Gospels, Jesus wept. Lazarus was his mate. Lazarus was a very close friend. And Jesus wept the loss of Lazarus. He goes to the tomb of his friend who had been dead for 4 days. And he calls him out from the space and place of death. He calls him to his proper place among the land of the living. And in so doing, Jesus is foreshadowing the gift that he gives to each and every one of us through his resurrection. Each and every one of us in some way finds ourselves in the shadow of death. Each and every one of us in some way finds ourselves fearful of that ultimate confrontation that we must face. That ultimate confrontation that most of us have spent so much intense energy upon denying, avoiding, suppressing, pretending it doesn't exist. And yet, this fear of death motivates so much of our life as we run to find hope, distraction, and diversion amongst so many other things that make us feel, even just for a while, but falsely immortal. And so, friends, with the raising of Lazarus, Jesus begins the final stages of his journey to his passion, to his suffering, and then to his glorious resurrection. On Palm Sunday, he enters Jerusalem. Bethany was very close to Jerusalem, just an outer suburb, a bit like Carindale, to St. George. And he enters, and of course you can imagine now, word had spread like wildfire that he raised Lazarus from the dead. Word had spread like wildfire that a man had been raised from the dead. And on top of this, the greatest annual feast of the Jewish religion, the Passover, the Pascha, was being celebrated at that time. And so the population of Jerusalem swelled by more than 10 times its normal population as Jewish people from all over the Mediterranean world made their pilgrimage to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. And faster than coronavirus, news spread of a dead man coming back from the dead at the hands of this prophet, Jesus. And so everybody wanted to see who he was. And when they heard that he was entering Jerusalem, they all gathered. And they thought this was the man that was going to save them from every conceivable thing that humanity needs to be saved from. And just like us, people went to greet Jesus on Palm Sunday for different reasons. Some went because they already had a faith in him. They could see that he was the Son of God, and they accepted this. Some went because they felt he was a prophet in the same spirit as the prophets of the Old Testament. Some went simply to be spectators. Some went because they thought this was going to be the military leader that would lead the revolution and expel the Romans from Palestine as an oppressing power. So little has changed. We all go to Christ for our own personal reasons. Some are good, some are very shallow. But don't imagine that the whole crowd was there for the same thing, because a good part of that crowd, in another 5 days' time, will go from shouting Hosanna in the highest, welcoming the Son of David, the King of David, the King of Israel, to crucify him, kill him. The religious leaders of the day were in a frenzy with anger as Jesus entered Jerusalem, as a direct threat to their religious power, as a direct threat to the political power that they possessed. And so, the next few days, as Jesus asks us to journey with him to the foot of the cross, to be hung upon the tree of the cross together with him, to sit there on Holy Saturday with patience and anticipations that we will be raised from the dead. For as Paul says in Romans, if we died believing in him, then must we believe that we will rise with him also. We will enter a story, a narrative in the coming week that encompasses every possible and conceivable human emotion. It's a story of passion. It's an intense story. It's a story of love. It's a story of betrayal. It's a story of envy and jealousy. It's a story of hatred and bitterness. But ultimately, it's a story. It's a journey. The journey of Christ in the last days of his earthly ministry. It's a story underpinned with the strong and beautiful streams and currents of God's love for humanity. For in the coming days we will remember and we will relive that the Creator was crucified and killed at the hands of the created. The hands that will drive the nails through the hands and feet of Christ. The hands that will whip him just shy of death. The lips that will betray him were all created by him. He created the hands that will kill him, the lips that will betray him. But it is a characteristic of love to be vulnerable, friends. Love, by its very nature, means vulnerability. When we love someone, we are vulnerable. We allow them to be able to betray us. We allow them to be able to harm us. We allow them to be able to envy us. And so the crucifixion of Christ, the betrayal of our Lord, is a testament to his love for humanity. And his willingness to be vulnerable. And his willingness to be weak before the weakest. And there is nothing weaker than envy coupled with political power and prestige. There is nothing weaker than betrayal, which comes from fear. These are weak things. They do great harm, but they are weak things. And Jesus submitted himself to all of these in order to take us to another place, to another space, to another way of living, to another way of perceiving, to another worldview. And like Lazarus, he calls us, each and every one of us, each and every one of you, me, you, us, out of the shadow of death, out of the tomb, That is not our place. Death is not where we're meant to abide. Fear is not where we are meant to exist. Anxiety is not our natural state. We were created for life. We were created for love. We were created for connection. We were created for each other. And we can only find each other throughout this Holy Week and at the resurrection of Christ if we accept this invitation from Christ to, like Lazarus, come out of our tombs, come out of our darkness, come out of our inner world of anxiety and fear into the light, out of the cave, into the sunshine, and there to see reality like we've never seen it.